Last week, the House approved a budget framework, but framework and an actual budget are two different things. I am curious what exactly is in it. Freedom Caucus supported it. Most of the House did. Thomas Massie, Victoria Sparks did not, but most of the House did. What's in this daggone thing? Joining me now, one of the good ones, Scott Perry, Republican state of Pennsylvania, and the former chairman of the Freedom Caucus. Okay, Congressman, what's in this budget?
Well, Jesse, the House budget is actually not terrible. It's not great. It's not even good, but it's not terrible. The Senate budget is basically a framework that says we can continue to steal unless we don't steal. The problem is that the Senate refuses to move forward until we pass their language so that we can start the conversation. Of course, we don't like that. The House hemmed itself in. The House said, we're not going to spend this money without getting cuts for it, right? Because we don't have extra money. We're actually broke. So we're not going to do more tax cuts. We're not going to do more border spending. We're not going to do more military spending, although all that stuff is worthy and needs to be addressed. But you've got to cut stuff if you're going to spend money on that stuff, because the money going out is more than the money going in. And so the House wrote the bill so that we can't have the tax cuts, we can't have the border money, and we can't have the military money unless we cut the spending. The Senate said it was unable to do that because of the Byrd rule and their kooky language over there and whatever. And they said they could not do that, but the only thing they could do is go out in public and say that they agreed with our numbers and they were going to try and reach them. That's the best we could get them. And quite honestly, the White House, that's the best position we could get them to.
Okay, so you don't sound that hopeful that you're about to have an agreement. It certainly doesn't sound like it from the tone of your voice here, or it doesn't sound like we're going to have one by close of business today.
Well, I don't think we're going to have one by close of business today for sure. Look, Jesse, here's the thing about Washington, D.C. Nobody there is interested in doing math, and no one there has forced these people to do arithmetic in decades. And the Freedom Caucus is essentially forcing them to. And we didn't agree with the one big, beautiful bill strategy because that put us right where we are now. And the concern is that the Senate is going to convince the president that you got to have the debt ceiling increase. You got to have the tax cuts made permanent. And by the way, most Freedom Caucus members, even though we don't love the debt ceiling increase, we get it. So we understand that. The problem is the Senate's probably going to convince, and many House members are going to try and convince the president that we don't have to cut anything. If we do cut something, it's not going to be much. Remember, Jesse, in the Senate bill, they cut 20 minutes of spending, $4 billion. That's 20 minutes. $4 billion over 10 years. All right, so our starting point in the House was $1.5 trillion over 10 years. So that was our starting point. We want to get to like $2.5 trillion to show the bond market that we're serious about not bankrupting the country. But there's a lot of people in the House and the Senate that don't want to cut anything, want to have tax cuts, want to spend more money on the border, want to spend more money on the military, want to spend more money on state and local taxes. They want to spend money on that, but they don't want to reduce spending on anything. And that creates deficits. And we don't think that this president or the American people should have to suffer through more deficits and more high prices at the grocery store, at the lumber yard, and at the gas pump.
Okay. Can you tell me where the White House sits on the House bill, Senate bill specifically? And I asked the question in this way. I've been aware of the closed-door meetings that Trump has allegedly had with senators talking about how he wants to rein in the deficit, how he wants to cut spending. He's talked about it in speeches. Well, the opportunity is here. Which way is the White House pushing?
Well, the White House is pushing to cut spending, and the White House is pushing to balance the budget, which we love, which I personally love. But when you get down to the numbers, the brass tacks, when you get down to picking and choosing how many dollars for this and how many not for that, that's where everybody gets kind of weak and doesn't really want to discuss it. See, these are Now, a lot of this is theater, but we have to be able to do elementary school mathematics here. And that scares a heck of a lot of people, no matter if you're at the White House, whether you're at the Senate, or whether you're in the House. That scares people.
Okay, let's switch up and talk about the SAVE Act, which did pass the House. What is it, and is it going to pass the Senate?
Well, it's not going to pass the Senate because there are Democrats over there, and they need 60 to pass anything. The SAVE Act enforces or forces states to enforce the fact that only American citizens can vote in federal elections. Of course, Jesse, you already know it's illegal to vote in an election if you are here illegally, but no one enforces it. So it's like having a speed limit without any police. And so the SAVE Act says, oh, actually, you're going to enforce it. So we passed it out of the House. Likely the only way it's going to pass in the Senate is if we can hook it onto this reconciliation. And once that train's rolling, then we only need Republican senators to vote for it. And hopefully we can get that put into law. But if we got to depend on Democrats, I can't imagine one that's actually going to vote for it because, as you know, they're for illegals voting. That's why they brought them here in the first place.
Oh, it's so refreshing to hear people in the House talk like this. Let's talk about Real ID, because that's obviously making some headlines right now. Here was Kristi Noem talking about it.
You've had quite a bit of discussion on Real ID and its implementation here in the country. And the reason that Real ID is being enforced is because it's a federal law. Joe Biden kicked the can to May 7th. And this Real ID is going to just empower the states to make sure we're checking people's residences. Their current legal status will be verified. We're going to make sure that people who are getting Social Security numbers in this country aren't voting in states. The states have the power and the information to ensure election integrity. And here at the federal level, that information is not going to be any biometric information. It'll just allow people to get an ID that they should be on our planes. They should be people that are United States residencies, and that legal status will be checked. So it'll allow us to get more information to states so that they're making sure that they're protecting their election laws as well.
What should I feel about this?
Well, Jesse, when I was a state legislator, I voted against this because I kind of just had this premonition that it was going to be used to prevail on and disenfranchise American citizens, and it wouldn't be used to deal with people here illegally. And of course, over the course of time, that's what has happened, right? I had to get a Real ID if I want to vote in Pennsylvania soon, if I want to get on an airplane and I don't have a passport. So they get all my information. Meanwhile, people that come here illegally are using their arrest documents to get on a plane, and no one checks their status for voting. So, look, the concept of having a list of American citizens and making sure that only those people on that list as citizens can vote, that's a good concept. I support that. Unfortunately, left to the states, I live in Pennsylvania. Our governor is not interested in having only citizens vote. They love the fact that anybody can come here, get a driver's license, get a work permit. And by the way, when they ask you if you want a driver's license, they ask you to register to vote. They don't ask you your citizenship. So I'm very, very skeptical.
Yeah, I'm very skeptical myself. Speaking of your governor, your state, his home was torched, which was freaking awful. But I did see that he got up and he gave a speech, the same speech I see a lot on the news anymore, Congressman, about how it's both sides. We got to stop this violence. I don't care which side. It's not both sides. The communists in this country have been committing acts of violence for years and years and years now. It's ramping up. It's obvious to everybody with two eyes. And yet now we're supposed to pretend like, well, we're all kind of guilty of the whole thing. I find it ridiculous.
Yeah, look, what happened to the governor and his home is it's unacceptable. It's terrible. We're happy that he and his family is safe. Firebombed in the middle of the night, set on fire, I guess, with Molotov cocktails by, I think, as I understand it, a socialist who is an anti-Semitic person. Of course, our governor is Jewish, but you're absolutely right, Jesse. Yeah. This is the left. This is what the left always does. The violence is always on the left, and it has been for decades, if not centuries. And they always act like both sides are engaged in it. Both sides are not engaged in it. We're looking at this recent plan to execute and assassinate President Trump. It's another lefty. It's always on the left.
Yeah, no, it is. Before I let you go, I did want to take a moment and congratulate you because there is an amazing football team from an amazing university in Washington, D.C. celebrating a wonderful national championship today. I'm sure this is a wonderful moment for you, is it not?
Well, I'm a Penn Stater, so no, it's not the greatest moment. But I appreciate the shout out. Look, if you're talking about championships, I'm going to go to the NCAA wrestling championships and the dominance of the dynasty of Penn State. Thank you very much, Jesse Kelly.
You know what? I have to give you that one. Congressman, thank you as always, sir. I appreciate you. All right. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.